civilization.
Secretary Clinton, so thank you for that. And you got.
You really mean that?
Yes, I do. I do, and you got several rounds of applause there. But I'm really interested in the line that our discussion is having already, which is a battle within the West between conservatism and liberalism. But I don't think we would be having this discussion at all if it weren't for some of the positions the US administration has taken. And let me take one of them, which is Ukraine, which is obviously at the center of the Munich discussions in the past couple of years. And the line that the Trump administration has taken in trying to resolve the Ukraine conflict following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, its apparent thrust to accept Russia's territorial encroachment on Ukraine. And to you, I absolutely, I understand, and we've had various versions of it already, your characterization of a clash between conservative and liberal values being, at the heart of what's going on in the West. But in this particular one, a security issue, one that involves international law, whether countries still respect those international laws laid down after the Second World War, do you think that that brings a new rift within the West? Ukraine, the US's position. Yes, I am.
I think that the Trump administration's position toward Ukraine is disgraceful. I think the effort to force Ukraine into a surrender deal with Putin is shameful. I think the effort that Putin and Trump are making to profit off the misery and death of the Ukrainian people is a historic error and corrupt to the nth degree. And so I believe Ukraine is fighting for our democracy and our values of freedom and civilization on the front lines, losing thousands of people and having their country destroyed by one man's mania to control them. And I think Trump either doesn't understand or could care less about that suffering. So that's what I think.
And so do you think he has destroyed the West, to go to our title?
He has betrayed the West. He's betrayed human values. He's betrayed the NATO Charter, the Atlantic Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. A lot of what has been done before to try to make sense of how difficult it is to restrain people who want unaccountable power. And none of us in this room, including all of us on this panel, would choose to live under a regime that was so unaccountable that it could act with impunity the way that Putin does, except that's who Trump is modeling himself
I don't think
after.
we would be having this debate under that kind of regime, for sure. We will come back, I suspect, to the conservatism and liberalism clash within the West, but thank you for that. Peter, do you agree that the Trump administration's actions on Ukraine have produced a rift in the West?
Well, first, I think you really don't like him.
That is absolutely true. But I really, not only do I not like him, I don't like him because of what he's doing to the United States and the world. And I think you should take a hard look at it if you think that there is something good that will come out of that.
Peter,
what I think Trump is doing in America, I think it is reaction for something for some policies that really went too far from the regular people, too far from reality. So we saw the cancel culture. We saw the woke revolution. I don't agree with the gender revolution, the climate alarmism.
Which gender? Women having their rights?
No, let Peter go on.
I think there are two genders. So, but some of
us
think that there is more than one or more than two gender. I think there is male and female, and the rest probably is a social construct. So this is something that went too far.
But does that justify selling out the people of Ukraine who are on the front lines dying to save their freedom and their two genders, if that's what you're worried about?
Can I please finish my points? I'm sorry that it makes you nervous. I'm really sorry for that.
It makes me nervous. It makes me
but seriously, can we let Peter finish, please? Can we let Peter finish, please?
I have to say one more thing. You said that Ukraine fights for our future and for our freedom. I think first, Ukraine fights for Ukraine's future, Ukraine's freedom, and Ukraine's sovereignty and independence. So we should help them, of course, but what I see in some people in the West, they are trying to help the Ukraine. But that's another question. I don't know if Trump's administration is helping the Ukraine to stop the war. I believe that there is such an approach. I don't see any other strong geopolitical player who would be able to force Russia to stop killing the Ukrainian people and stop destroying their country. I don't see. Maybe China, but China makes nothing. I don't know if the pressure, if Trump is forcing Russia in the way that they will stop the war. I don't know. I only see that the only Americans right at the moment can make it. I see the dialogue.
Do you think Europe could put more pressure on Russia, for example, by putting pressure on Turkey, by targeting the refineries of oil more, and so on?
I think Europe also makes some pressure. We release sanctions. We do what we can. But I think the Russians, they probably don't care. When I visited Ukraine, I saw the goodwill of all people in Ukraine. They were really united and willing to stop the war. But
they keep fighting. They seem to be.
They also made some steps that probably a year ago no one from them would allow to say or even suggest. Now they are ready to make some steps back. Now it's ball on the Russian side, but I don't see any goodwill on their side. So
indeed, we probably are agreed on that point.
In a recent high-profile debate, prominent political figures engaged in a candid discussion about the current state of the West, international law, and the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. The conversation shed light on the deep divisions within Western political thought and the profound implications of recent U.S. foreign policy decisions. The discussion opened with an acknowledgement of the ongoing ideological clash within the West, between conservatism and liberalism. However, the conversation quickly shifted to the critical issue of U.S. foreign policy, particularly regarding Ukraine and Russia. The speakers emphasized that many of the tensions and debates we're witnessing today are directly linked to the actions and stance of the United States, especially under the Trump administration. One of the participants strongly criticized the Trump administration's approach toward Ukraine, describing it as disgraceful. They condemned efforts perceived as trying to force Ukraine into surrender negotiations with Russia, characterizing such moves as shameful and indicative of a betrayal of Western values and international law. The speaker argued that Ukraine is fighting not just for its own sovereignty but for the fundamental principles of democracy, freedom, and civilization itself. The destruction and suffering inflicted upon Ukraine, thousands of lives lost and cities reduced to rubble, are the tragic results of a maniacal desire for control by Putin, the speaker asserted. According to them, Trump's stance either demonstrates a lack of understanding or a blatant disregard for the human suffering involved. This perspective led to a broader condemnation of Trump's impact on the West, with the speaker asserting that he has betrayed the West, the NATO alliance, and the universal principles enshrined in documents like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. They accused Trump of emulating authoritarian regimes, models of unchecked impunity-driven power, like that of Vladimir Putin. The speaker stressed that such a regime is fundamentally incompatible with the values of accountability and justice that Western democracies have long championed. They warned that under Trump's influence, the West risks losing its moral and legal footing, potentially creating a world where unaccountable power runs unchecked. The debate then turned to the question of whether these policies and attitudes have created a rift within the Western alliance. One participant acknowledged the clear division but also pointed out that the core issue is the damage caused by Trump's approach. Damage not only to U.S. domestic stability but also to the global order and the unity of the West. Another participant chimed in with a more critical view of Trump's policies, framing them as reactions to broader societal upheavals, such as the cultural shifts around gender rights, climate change, and social justice movements. They argued that in their view, some of Trump's actions are responses to a perceived overreach by progressive forces, which they believe have gone too far in certain social and cultural domains. However, they also emphasized that these internal tensions should not overshadow the urgent need to support Ukraine, which is fighting for its very survival amidst Russian aggression. A key point raised was the distinction between Ukraine fighting for its own sovereignty and independence versus the broader narrative of Western nations aiding Ukraine for their collective future and security. The speaker clarified that Ukraine's primary fight is for its own future, sovereignty, and independence. Yet, they expressed concern that some Western actors might be exploiting the situation for political gains rather than genuine support, raising questions about the true motivations behind some of the aid and policies. Regarding international efforts to pressure Russia, the participants agreed that Western countries, especially Europe, are doing what they can, through sanctions and diplomatic measures. However, the consensus was that Russia's behavior indicates a disregard for Western pressure, and that Russia's leadership remains unresponsive to these efforts. The Ukrainian people's resilience and unity were praised, yet it was acknowledged that meaningful progress depends heavily on strategic pressure, potentially including more targeted actions such as restricting energy supplies or tightening sanctions further. The discussion concluded with a shared understanding that, despite differing perspectives on internal Western ideological conflicts, there is a common recognition of the gravity of the Russian invasion and the importance of supporting Ukraine. While some differences remain about the best approach, all agreed that the situation remains a critical test of Western unity, values, and international law.